Hello everyone and welcome back to Circle City. Hope you guys are having a good day. Today we're going to be working on our second cosmetics shop up on the second floor of the shopping district, and it is going to be a bookstore. So this project is probably going to take 2 episodes, so today I just want to get the exterior done. So I've already taken the time to collect all the supplies that we're going to need, and I went ahead and I crafted 2 shulker boxes to hold all of the things that we're going to need. So I'd like to take a minute just to talk about shulker boxes in case you don't know anything about them. This is why it was so important for us to go to the end city, because having shulker boxes greatly improves the amount of inventory that you can carry on your person. So it's pretty much like having a portable chest that you can carry with you. So we went to the end city and collected our shulkers. I was pretty disappointed at only being able to find 10 of them, because in my mind I couldn't remember if you needed 2 shulker shells or 4 to make a box, but it turns out that you only need 2 of them. So in Bedrock, when you have shulkers in your inventory, you can hover over them and it'll tell you roughly what's in there. It won't show everything, but for the most part, you'll get some idea of what's in there. The other great thing about shulker boxes is you can put them inside of your ender chest as well. For safekeeping or just to keep more stuff, so it just really advances the amount of inventory you are allowed to have. And then I also have a small secret that I want to share with you guys, because I don't like keeping secrets from my friends. After I returned from the end and I cut my video, I don't know, it was really bothering me. So I went back through my footage again just to make sure that I didn't miss anything. And it turns out that I did miss something. I missed something very big. At the moment when I was leaving and I whipped around to look at our tiny little end city tower, there was a moment where this came into view. So quite a large end city that I missed there, but I don't want to go back right now. But it's very good to know that that thing is there, so that if I ever do decide that I want to collect more shulkers, like if 5 is not going to be enough to carry me through, that's an option that we can do. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and start building up our bookstore, which is going to be in this area here, up on our second floor, so back in the, along the wall again. Because my idea is basically to put our cosmetic shops mostly along the back wall, since those are the furthest locations away from like our staircase over there. I mean, I know we have this one just for convenience, but yeah. Anyway, let me go ahead and plop these down. And I did a little bit of pre-work. I just laid some cobblestone down so that we can walk around here easier, and I kind of forgot to put some in here, so let me do that. So I got all our temp blocks in place so that we have, places to stand, so that'll be just lovely for us. I'm gonna start off with our chiseled tuff. Well, let me just go ahead and pull the things out of here that I know we're going to need immediately. Okay, so I think that we'll start working on this section first. And on here, we're just gonna do a row of it's chiseled tuff bricks. And that's gonna give us our solid foundation to start on. Oh, hold on, let me get one more thing out. Okay, so next along here, we're just gonna add some acacia. And I really spent a lot of time trying to design this thing. I went through many variations, and I'm hoping you guys are gonna like what I came up with here. 4 there, and then over here to there, and acacia here, And acacia there. Alright, so that's looking good for our start. So... blah, 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 blah. And then above all of this, we're going to put in another row of our chiseled blocks. And then another 4 sticking out here. So there's the kind of the start to our build. And now I'm just going to repeat pretty much the same thing on the top. Oh, why is it always raining in this game? So in this part, I need to do just a little bit of trickery because I want this to look like a solid block from the front. But I want there to be light coming through. So if I used a solid block here, that would make this ledge end up being like really, really dark. And I don't want to have that. So I'm going to use the stair steps there so that we can allow light to come through it from the back side. And now I get to the terrible, weird spot where I have to use a lot of scaffolding all over the place. And so, let me drag these across first. Oh. That's where I failed. Because I want that guy to come out. Alright. Got this. Okay, so there's the bones of the first wall. Now we're going to add some details to it to make it shiny and interesting. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add some of the warped fence in these 2 little spots. And if I can reach. Hurry. And then we're going to use some honey blocks to make some fake windows. And once those are in, we're going to add some torches above and below those, just so the light can come through them. Oh man, I didn't even know that that was an achievement. How interesting. Yeah, so basically that achievement was just for sliding down a honey block, because when you fall and you're up against a honey block, it slows your descent. So obviously a mechanic that I've never taken advantage of. Okay, with those in, it's time to continue our detailing. So on the front of these guys, we're going to add some warp trap doors. Just close those all down. We're going to skip that one. Okay, and in the center here, we're going to do something a little bit different. So in the top here, we're just going to add bookcases. And in the bottom here, we're going to add some lecterns. And want to put some books books and quills on top of those. And then for this one, instead of using the warped, we're going to use acacia. Alrighty. So wall number 1 is now completed. Hooray! Alright, so this side wall, I'm not going to do anything fancy with it. We're just going to run the chiseled and the polished down. That's polished, right? Yeah, polished tough. Down until we get to this corner. Alright, so got that in, and now it's time to start on the front side. And I'm just going to put the basic groundwork in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this one comes out. Then we skip 1, 2, 3. Put this in there. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so I started off just by making 4 stacks of these chiseled bricks. Hoping kind of that would be enough. Well, I don't know if I'm going to make it or not, but we're going to do our best. You know, because of course if I need to, I can always just run down and make more, but so annoying. I should have made like a stone cutter to bring up here. But at the same token, I just didn't really want to have an extra thing just taking up inventory space after I'm done. Okay, so I got the bones in for this part. Now I'm just going to add the honey blocks to our windows. And just like we did on that section. Alright, so I got those in, and I'm just going to go ahead and trapdoor over top of them, and then we'll work on our entranceway. Well, hooray, looking fabulous. And for our entranceway, we're going to do things a little bit different here. So I'm going to grab some warpwood stem and some grindstones. So we are going to, for these places, I have to get in the right spot here. See if I can reach that. Cool. So we're going to put some warped wood here. And here. And we're going to strip that. And while we're up here, I'm going to add some bookcases. I'm going to go around like this with those, and I am going to add a torch right there. And next up, it's time to put our little grindstones in, because I was having a let me shift, and let me crouch. Was having a really difficult time coming up with something to use for this entranceway that I liked. And I went back and forth probably, I don't know, about 2,000 times trying to figure out something that I liked, and I ended up using the grindstones as pillars. So we'll see if you guys approve of that, or if you think it just looks like a hot mess. But I go ahead and throw those in there. And then for our nice little focal point in front of that torch, we're going to add an enchanting table. Haha. Finally, a use for the enchanting table now. I don't know about you guys, but since like the villager update, I have not used an enchanting table for anything. So that's pretty much going to do it for our storefront, and I really am happy with the way that it came out. I like the little focal points of our enchanting table up there with the floating book and the books behind it. And then I like this focal point over here with our lecterns. And using the acacia trapdoors back there as opposed to the warp wood, just to give it, a little bit more of a glow. I did play a little bit with doing the honey blocks and the acacia trapdoors in this space as opposed to the bookcases, but it turned out that it was just a little bit too distracting. So I went ahead and left the bookcases up there. And then I can get rid of these temp blocks at this point because they're just kind of in the way. With our temp blocks gone, then you can see what it's, really going to look like. So after I get a floor up here, from a distance, I think it'll look pretty sharp. But for right now, you can see on the inside, it's looking pretty dang ugly. So what I need to do here is I need to come around and build a fake wall to cover up all of this stuff. So I am going to go make some more chisel tough. And then we'll come back to take care of that. And while I'm putting up these fake walls, I suppose it's a good time to tell you about my adventures for the week. But before I start going with that, I should warn you that if the thought of unwelcome pests into your house really bothers you, you might want to skip the rest of this episode. Because what this has to do with is earlier this week I was in my garage and I heard a little noise and I just waited for a minute. I thought it was coming. We have like an extra refrigerator in our garage. And so I was kind of looking to where I heard the noise, which was on top of that refrigerator. And I hung out for a minute, stayed real quiet. And lo and behold, I saw a little mouse running across the top of my fridge and going, up the wall into like a little hidey spot that he had. I think it was in like the insulation that goes around the vents that are in, the ceiling of our garage. And I didn't panic because the one thing that's funny about me and my infinite list of things that I am afraid of, mice are not one of them. In fact, I find them to be rather cute. But of course, that doesn't mean that I want them to be living in my garage. So, the thing is that I live in a semi-rural area. That word is like the worst word to try to say. Like, who came up with that word? Rural. But anyway, so being in a semi-rural area, when the weather starts changing, all the animals outside are trying to find warm spaces to stay. So I can't say that this is the first time that I've ever had a mouse get into my garage, and on occasion we've had them, come into the house. The good news is, having Sam the cat, he is pretty good about, keeping an eye on those things. And in the past, he has, actually caught one mouse that has gotten into my house. But I'm not going to say like having mice in the house is a huge problem. It's not like I've ever been like overwhelmed and overloaded with like a ton of mice getting into the house. It's usually just like one, once every maybe 3 or 4 years that actually will make it into the house. Because I kind of am against the needless killing of things. I bought a humane mousetrap like a long time ago. And it has been pretty good. What it is it's kind of like a tube that works on as like a seesaw. So basically you put bait into the one end of it, you prop it up, you open up this door, and when the mouse goes in, the whole thing kind of swivels. Ugh. And then it closes the door and the mouse is trapped in there. So you don't really see the mouse at all. You know, of course, until you're ready to release it. And it works pretty good, but sometimes, you know, it does, you know, misfire. Like the mouse will somehow trigger it before they're actually inside. I'm not really sure exactly how that happens, but I don't really care. You know, eventually the mouse will get caught in it. So I found my trap, of course, and I baited it and set it up on top of the refrigerator. And the first night I got nothing. And the next night it was triggered. And the bad thing is that I noticed that it was triggered like really late in the evening. Kind of too late for me to do anything about it, you know, right then. So the only problem that I've ever had with this trap is that on occasion, if you leave the mouse in there for too long, it'll kind of die. And I hate that. I mean, because the whole point of having a humane trap is so that you're not actually killing the poor little critter. And so this was kind of a problem when I first got the trap, because like I caught 2 of them, and these were like mice that were kind of outside still, but they were, you know, pretty close to the house, so they were, you know, there was a threat of them actually getting in. So the first 2 mice that I caught, I was all happy to go out and, you know, release them back into the wilderness. And then they came out and they were dead because they got too hot in there and then they suffocated. So I ended up making the breather holes on the trap a little bigger. They have like 4 breather holes on the top of it that, you know, are supposed to allow enough air in so that the mouse doesn't suffocate. But they just weren't big enough, so I took my drill, or my Dremel tool, and made those holes a little bit bigger, and now it hasn't been a problem since then. I haven't had a dead mouse get stuck. Well, I haven't tried to release a dead mouse since I've done that. So anyway, so like I said, like this night it, you know, it triggered, and I felt kind of bad because I couldn't take it out right then and there because it was too late. And so I decided to wait until the next day, until I came home from work. So I did that. So I came home from work, I looked at the trap, I grabbed it, I got it into my car, and took it down to where I normally release them. And so the problem that I was having at this point is that, you know, for some dumb reason, my anxiety decided to kick in. And so, like, even though I've done this before and it's never been, like, a huge problem, for some reason this time I'm just, like, shaking like a leaf. So, like, even when I was picking up the trap and trying and, you know, put it in the car and took it down to where it was and walked it down the little path to the little wooded area, and I'm just, like, shaking like a leaf. And I'm just like, man, what is wrong with you? It's, you know, you've done this before. It's not a problem. You know exactly what's going to happen. You're going to open up the door and the mouse isn't going to want to come out. So you're going to have to shake it a little bit to get him to come out. So, and I'm just like trying to talk to myself to soothe myself. And, you know, and ultimately I knew everything was going to be fine. But I just, that's the annoying thing about like anxiety issues is they just like even though you know, even though you know that everything is okay and just fine, like for some reason, like really stressed out and just, for absolutely no reason. Okay, I got the fake walls in for the interior here, and I'm just going to keep, I'm going to build this wall all the way down to the end there. So my brain is just like, how are you going to open up the door? What if the mouse, jumps back? What if it bites you? Blah, blah, blah. Like, all this stupid crap. Like, all of the things that, that people might think might happen when you're releasing a mouse that never truly will. Because the reality is that the mouse just wants to get away from you. The mouse is not interested in attacking and standing up for itself. It just wants to be not in danger. So, so I'm standing there at where I want to release the mouse, and I open up the door, and I'm holding it open, and I'm shaking the trap so that it'll come out, because like I said, it's like when you take your pet to the vet, and how they don't want to go in their carrier cage, and then when you get them there, they don't want to come out. It's like the same thing. So I'm like shaking it, and then I shook it a little harder, and I shook it a little harder, and no mouse was coming out. So I had to tip it and look into it, and there was no mouse in it. It misfired. And I was just like, oh my gosh, because there you go. Getting all upset and anxious about things for absolutely no reason. So of course, I come back to the house, I had to set the trap up, and pretty much an hour after the sunset, the trap got triggered again. And I was like, oh my gosh. So is there a mouse in there this time or not? Am I going to be wasting my time again? What was that shadow? There must be a trader that's up on the ceiling. Yeah, that's what it is. A wandering villager. I hope it's not a pillager. No, that's definitely a villager. Okay, so I just got interrupted, so I'm trying to collect my thoughts again. I think we were at the part where I was saying that the trap was triggered again. Yeah, I think that's about where it was. So, with the trap being triggered again, I didn't want it to be like another false alarm. I was bound and determined to find out if there really was a mouse in this sucker or not. So I grabbed a little flashlight. Sometimes it's easy to figure out if there's one in there. And sometimes they make it a little bit more difficult for you. Because, the fact of the matter is that mice are, weigh absolutely nothing. So, by picking up the trap, you can't really tell by the weight of it if there's one in there or not. So you kind of have to fumble around with it a little bit and kind of seesaw it back and forth sometimes to see if the weight variation will tip it this way or that way. This one wasn't really like I would tip it this way and it would stay, and I would tip it that way and it would stay. But I was like, it couldn't possibly have gone off twice without there being something inside of it. So I grabbed a little flashlight and I started, shining the light into the tiny little breather holes to see if I can see anything in it. This was really super difficult to do, because shining the light into the hole and then trying to see at the same time what was going on in there, and the mouse was not moving, not making any noise. But after I looked in it, I probably spent oh my gosh, probably 15-20 minutes just looking into the holes and shining the light in to see if I could see anything, any movement, any noise. In the past, some of the mice have like had their noses up to the breathing hole so that, you know for sure that they were there. But this one, So eventually, I was able to see a little bit of fuzz. And that was enough for me to say, yep, there's definitely a mouse in there this time. So, unfortunately, at this time of the night, I didn't really want to go to my usual, space of releasing. But because it being dark and kind of, back in the woods, like, I'm not really comfortable going to these places by myself in the dark. I just think it's, a really bad idea. And so, naturally, I resort to the kindness of my mother once again. And I'm like, Mama, will you go with me to release the mouse? And she's like, are you sure that there's one in there? And I said, yeah, absolutely. Definitely sure that I saw some fuzzy stuff in there. So he is definitely in there. And she says, because my mom is not like me, and she is afraid of mice, and she does not like them. But she was willing to go along with me, and she says, well, what do I do? I said, I just want you to be with me, just be there with me while I go to, dark places, and just to have somebody else there. And then we talked about where we should go to release this one, and we thought of a different area that was actually a really good spot to release it, like better than where I had been releasing them before. And, and I joked with her about, well, I just want you to hold the mouse, while we go. Which, of course, was lying. It was just to get, like, a rise out of her. And she was like, oh, no, of course. And I was like, I'm just kidding. I'm going to put it, in the back seat, like, on the floor. And she was like, okay. So we got in the car. We put the trap in the car. And we got to where we were going. And when I got out of the car and got the trap, I, like, took a minute to listen to make sure that I didn't hear, like, any other animals in that area. Because there are, coyotes and things. I've not really seen one, but I've heard them, and I don't know exactly, where they live. So I just wanted to be extra cautious that I wasn't, like, hearing. How come every time I place a block, I fall? But anyway, so after I listened for a minute and was pretty sure that everything was just going to be fine, I walked over to, like, the edge of this wooded area, and it's really a good area because there's, like, a lot of, like, there's an area where it is mowed, like the grass, but then as soon as that area stops, there's nothing but, like, tall grass and shrubbery and trees. And so I opened the door and started shaking the trap. And it took, maybe 20 seconds, and then eventually the mouse just, plopped out and ran off. Just, hop, hop, hop. I don't know. They're so cute. I know, maybe I'm, like, one of the few people in the world that think that mice are cute, but they're just, to me, they're just adorable. But that was pretty much the end of that. The end of my adventures for that week, except for I reset the trap again, had one more false alarm, and ended up catching another one. So that's 2 mice now that I have been able to catch and release, and I'm certainly happy about that. And I certainly feel a lot better about, the catch and release system than, putting down traps that kill them or poison them. That just makes me feel terrible. So this sidewall, is done, and I'm sure there's going to be, like, another shop or 2 on this side, so this being, so bland isn't going to be any problem at all. So I think that's going to wrap it up for today. The only thing about this build that kind of bothers me is using the stripped warp wood on the sides here, because like when you're, pretty much at the front here, like using the grindstones look really good. But when you come sideways and it starts to lose its perspective, oh my gosh, let me make a little path here. I'm sorry. As you start to come sideways, you see more and more of that edge, and it kind of throws off the idea of having, like a pillar in front. And there's not really anything that I can do about that. I mean, until they make like a gray trap door, there's not really any way for me to cover that up without it just being weird. I even tried like a banner, and like there's two things that I don't like about banners. One thing is that they're considered an entity, which means that when you're a certain distance away, like they're not even going to show up. And the other thing is that, using a banner to cover up something, they're always moving. They're always like blowing in the wind, whether they're inside or outside, or and that movement is just not something I want in a stationary build. So anyway, so I think we'll wrap things up here for today. Next episode, we'll deal with the interior. And I just want to thank you guys for stopping by, and thanks for hanging out with me. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.